أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. ياسين والقرآن الحكيم إنك لمن المرسلين على صراط مستقيم. تنزيل العزيز الرحيم لتنذر قوما ما أنذر آباؤهم فهم غافلون. لقد حق القول على أكثرهم فهم لا يؤمنون. إنا جعلنا في أعناقهم أغلالا فهي إلى الأذقان فهم مقمحون. وجعلنا من بين أيديهم سدا ومن خلفهم سدا فأغشيناهم فهم لا يبصرون. وسواء عليهم أأنذرتهم أم لم تنذرهم لا يؤمنون. إنما تنذر من اتبع الذكر وخشي الرحمن بالغيب فبشره بمغفرة وأجر كريم. إنا نحن نحيي الموتى ونكتب ما قدموا وآثارهم وكل شيء أحصيناه في إمام مبين. واضرب لهم مثلا أصحاب القرية إذ جاءها المرسلون إذ أرسلنا إليهم اثنين فكذبوهما فعززنا بثالث وقالوا إنا إليكم مرسلون. قالوا ما أنتم إلا بشر مثلنا وما أنزل الرحمن من شيء إن أنتم إلا تكذبون. قالوا ربنا يعلم إنا إليكم لمرسلون وما علينا إلا البلاغ المبين. قالوا إنا تطيرنا بكم لئن لم تنتهوا لنرجمنكم وليمسنكم منا عذاب أليم. قالوا طائركم معكم أئن ذكرتم بل أنتم قوم مسرفون. وجاء من أقصى المدينة رجل يسعى قال يا قوم اتبعوا المرسلين اتبعوا من لا يسألكم أجرا وهم مهتدون. وما لي لا أعبد الذي فطرني وإليه ترجعون. أأتخذ من دونه آلهة إن يردني الرحمن بضر لا تغن عني شفاعتهم شيئا ولا ينقذون. إني إذا لفي ضلال مبين. إني آمنت بربكم فاسمعون. قيل ادخل الجنة قال يا ليت قومي يعلمون بما غفر لي ربي وجعلني من المكرمين. وما أنزلنا على قومه من بعده من جند من السماء وما كنا منزلين إن كانت إلا صيحة واحدة فإذا هم خامدون يا حسرة على العباد ما يأتيهم من رسول إلا كانوا به يستهزئون ألم يروا كم أهلكنا قبلهم من القرون أنهم إليهم لا يرجعون وإن كل لما جميع لدينا محضرون وآية لهم الأرض الميتة أحييناها وأخرجنا منها حبا فمنه يأكلون وجعلنا فيها جنات من نخيل وأعناب وفجرنا فيها من العيون ليأكلوا من ثمره وما عملته أيديهم أفلا يشكرون سبحان الذي خلق الأزواج كلها مما تنبت الأرض ومن أنفسهم ومما لا يعلمون وآية لهم الليل نسلخ منه النهار فإذا هم مظلمون والشمس تجري لمستقر لها ذلك تقدير العزيز العليم والقمر قدرناه منازل حتى عاد كالعرجون القديم لا الشمس ينبغي لها أن تدرك القمر ولا الليل سابق النهار وكل في فلك يسبحون وآية لهم أنا حملنا ذريتهم في الفلك المشحون وخلقنا لهم من مثله ما يركبون وإن نشأ نغرقهم فلا صريخ لهم ولا هم ينقذون إلا رحمة منا ومتاعا إلى حين وإذا قيل لهم اتقوا ما بين أيديكم وما خلفكم لعلكم ترحمون وما تأتيهم من آية من آيات ربهم إلا كانوا عنها معرضين وإذا قيل لهم أنفقوا مما رزقكم الله قال الذين كفروا أنطعم من لو يشاء الله أطعمه إن أنتم إلا في ضلال مبين ويقولون متى هذا الوعد إن كنتم صادقين ما ينظرون إلا صيحة واحدة تأخذهم وهم يخصمون فلا يستطيعون توصية ولا إلى أهلهم يرجعون ونفخ في الصور فإذا هم من الأجداث إلى ربهم ينسلون قالوا يا ويلنا من بعثنا من مرقدنا هذا ما وعد الرحمن وصدق المرسلون إن كانت إلا صيحة واحدة فإذا هم جميع لدينا محضرون فاليوم لا تظلم نفس شيئا ولا تجزون إلا ما كنتم تعملون إن أصحاب الجنة اليوم في شغل فاكهون هم وأزواجهم في ظلال على الأرائك متكئون لهم فيها فاكهة ولهم ما يدعون سلام قولا من رب رحيم وامتازوا اليوم أيها المجرمون ألم أعهد إليكم يا بني آدم ألا تعبدوا الشيطان إنه لكم عدو مبين وأن اعبدوني هذا صراط مستقيم ولقد أضل منكم جبلا كثيرا أفلم تكونوا تعقلون هذه جهنم التي كنتم توعدون اصلوها اليوم بما كنتم تكفرون اليوم نختم على أفواههم وتكلمنا أيديهم وتشهد أرجلهم بما كانوا يكسبون ولو نشاء لطمسنا على أعينهم فاستبقوا الصراط فأنى يبصرون ولو نشاء لمسخناهم على مكانتهم فما استطاعوا مضيا ولا يرجعون ومن نعمره ننكسه في الخلق أفلا يعقلون وما علمناه الشعر وما ينبغي له إن هو إلا ذكر وقرآن مبين لينذر من كان حيا ويحق القول على الكافرين أولم يروا أنا خلقنا لهم مما عملت أيدينا أنعاما فهم لها مالكون وذللناها لهم فمنها ركوبهم ومنها يأكلون ولهم فيها منافع ومشارب أفلا يشكرون واتخذوا من دون الله آلهة لعلهم ينصرون لا يستطيعون نصرهم وهم لهم جند محضرون فلا يحزنك قولهم إنا نعلم ما يسرون وما يعلنون أولم ير الإنسان أنا خلقناه من نطفة فإذا هو خصيم مبين وضرب لنا مثلا ونسي خلقه قال من يحيي العظام وهي رميم قل يحييها الذي أنشأها أول مرة وهو بكل خلق عليم الذي جعل لكم من الشجر الأخضر نارا فإذا أنتم منه توقدون أوليس الذي خلق السماوات والأرض بقادر على أن يخلق مثلهم بلى وهو الخلاق العليم إنما أمره إذا أراد شيئا أن يقول له كن فيكون فسبحان الذي بيده ملكوت كل شيء وإليه ترجعون صدق الله العلي العظيم وصدق رسوله الكريم ونحن على ذلك من الشاهدين. إلى روح المرحوم أكبرالي وأرواح أمواتنا جميعا رحم الله من يقرأ الفاتحة تسبقها الصلاة على محمد وآل محمد. صل على محمد وآله.
सलावत। कर मदद मेरी पाकिर बेटा हमशीर की कब्र बनाऊं मैं। कर मदद मेरी बाकिर बेटा हमशीर की कब्र बनाऊं मैं। जंजीर उठाओ तुम मेरी, जंजीर उठाओ तुम मेरी और उसकी लाश उठाऊं मैं। कर मदद मेरी बाकिर बेटा हमशीर की कब्र बनाऊं मैं। जब तुमको रिहाई मिल जाए फुप्पियों को वतन पहुँचाना, रह लेंगे यहीं हम भाई बहन, तुम काफ़िला घर ले जाना। दफनाते हुए इस बच्ची को, दफनाते हुए इस बच्ची को जिंदा में अगर मर जाऊं मैं। कर मदद मेरी बाकिर बेटा हमशीर की कब्र बनाऊं मैं। कर मदद मेरी बाकिर बेटा हमशीर की कब्र बनाऊं मैं। दोनों को जुदा में कैसे हिम्मत ही नहीं ये मेरी है आप की सर से लिपटी हुई बेजाए आपकी बेटी क्या साथ सकीना के बाबा के साथ सकीना के बाबा सर आप कभी दफनाऊं मैं कर मदद मेरी बाकिर बेटा हमशीर की कब्र बनाऊं मैं दादा ने बड़ी मजलूमी में था दादी को दफनाया लेकिन वो मदीना था बाकिर और ये है देश पराया इस 4 बरस की ज़हरा को गुर्बत में कहाँ दफनाऊं मैं कर मदद मेरी बाकिर बेटा हमशीर की कब्र बनाऊं मैं सलावत
Bawa sebelah salwa. नादे अली का विर्द जो करती चली गई हरे उम्रे रवां सुकून से गुजरती चली गई हरे जिसने दरे हुसैन पे सर को झुका दिया हरे जिसने दरे हुसैन पे सर को झुका दिया वो शख्सियत जहां में उभरती चली गई नारा हैदरी 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 बुलंदतर सलवात पत्थर हटा के लाश से ज़ैनब ने दी सदा क्या तुम मेरे हुसैन हो पत्थर हटा के लाश से हाय ज़ैनब ने दी सदा, क्या तुम मेरे हुसैन हो। अरे कैसे पड़े हैं जिस्म के टुकड़े जुदा जुदा, क्या तुम मेरे हुसैन हो। पत्थर हटा के लाश से, अरे है मेरे गरीब क्या क्या हाल कर दिया। घोड़ों से लाश दश्त में पामाल कर दिया। पहचानू किस तरह से बदन से है सर जुदा। क्या तुम मेरे हुसैन हो। पत्थर हटा के लाश से, है पहचान लूंगी मैं तुम्हें, आवाज मुझको दो। है दम तोड़ते जो देखा है, बड़ी गल जवान को। आंखों में अब बहन की उजाला नहीं रहा। क्या तुम मेरे हुसैन हो। पत्थर हटा के लाश से, है करता रहा ज़िबा, करता रहा हज़ब हकी कोशिश कहाँ कहाँ। खंजर पे है कटी हुई कई डन पे भी निशान। काटा है किस तरह सितम गई ने ये गला। क्या तुम मेरे हुसैन हो। पत्थर हटा के लाश से, है आहिस्ता से जवाब दो, है साथ उसकी माँ। क्या अब तुम्हारे पास है मासूम बेजुबान। नन्ना सलाशा किसका ये सीने पे है रखा। अरे क्या तुम मेरे हुसैन हो, पत्थर हटा के लाश से। है ज़ैनब पुकारी मीर, तकल्लुम बसद मलल। है ज़ैनब पुकारी मीर, तकल्लुम बसद मलाल। क्या मरते वक्त भी मेरे पर्दे का था ख्याल। है मोतियों में किस लिए है ये खाके करबला। है क्या तुम मेरे हुसैन हो, पत्थर हटा के लाश से। है ज़ैनब ने दी सदा, क्या तुम मेरे हुसैन हो। सलवा।
एक सूरह फातिहा की दरख्वास्त है सैयद अकबर अली रिजवी इब्ने सैयद मौलाना मुर्तज़ा हुसैन रिजवी और हमारी मिल्लत के सब शहीद और सब।
Let us all please recite Amma Yajib 5 times for the safety of Muslimin throughout the world, for the safety of our holy shrines, and to hasten the appearance of Sahib al-Asri wa Zaman. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Amma yujibu al-mustarra idha da'ahu wa yakshifu as-su'. أما يجيب المضطر إذا دعاه ويكشف السوء. 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 اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. سورة المباركة الفاتحة. Please join me in welcoming Maulana Rizvi with a loud Sallu ala Muhammad.
كلام الله من قال رسول الله. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين. الحمد لله الذي لا يبلغ بالحكم ولا يحسن نعمه العافون ولا يؤدي شره المشركون. الذي بعد فلا جرى وقرب فشهد تبارك وتعالى. والصلاة والسلام على سيد الأنبياء وخاتم المرسلين وشفيع المذنبين سيدنا ونبينا الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين الذين أذهب الله عنهم الرجس وطهرهم تطهيرا. واللعنة الدائمة الباقية لأعدائهم ومنكر فضائلهم وغاصب حقوقهم من الآن إلى قيام يوم الدين. أما بعد، فقد قال الله سبحانه وتعالى في كتابه الكريم: كل نفس ذائقة الموت. صلوات. We've gathered this evening for Majlis for Marhum Ali Akbar Rizvi and Marhuma Raziyabai Jaffer. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept their good deeds, forgive their lapses, and inshallah include them among those who will be raised with Muhammad and ala Muhammad, inshallah. Let me ask you to recite Surah Fatiha for especially two of them and all other marhumin. Al-Fatiha. Bismillah. When we talk about death, especially when we talk about sudden death or what we might call untimely death, this is where the family members, the friends, the relatives, and the community basically go through this process of mourning and grieving. But this is the time also where we who are still alive, get the opportunity to reflect on ourselves, why we are in this dunya. What is the purpose? Interestingly, in all these gatherings that we have for Isal Sawab, the word Isal Sawab means to convey the reward of the zikr of Allah and Muhammad and ala Muhammad to the marhum or the marhuma. But in that, we also recite Surah Yasin. When we recite Surah Yasin, the purpose is that the sawab and the reward of that surah, that recitation will go to the marhum or the marhuma or marhumin that you have the majlis for. But interestingly, that surah itself has an ayat which says that this is the zikr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, which has been sent for those who are alive. So we recite it for the marhum. But the book itself is saying to us that I'm talking to you. And so it has a dual purpose. The sawab will go there, but the message is for us. that whatever, time that we have, let's reflect on it. and basically live according to the plan that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has for us. Because when we talk about the concept of death, this is inevitable. One of the lucky concepts, if I may use the term lucky, which is beyond any dispute, there is no second opinion about it, is the reality of death. Whatever you pick up from ideas in this world, you talk about God, you will have millions who believe, and you will have millions who doubt and disbelieve. You talk about the prophets, many believe, many don't believe. You talk about our own prophet, millions of people accept them, they accept him, many don't. You talk about the Quran, is it the word of Allah or not? Two opinions there. Any issue you pick up, there are two views there. But then talk about the reality of death. Anybody has doubt about it? Not at all. There is no second opinion there. The whole world is unified in saying that death is a reality. And that is why you will see that, when we have this concept in the ayat of Quran, كل نفس ذائقة الموت. Every, nafs, every soul is going to go through this process of death. And according to our understanding in the Quran, this applies to every human being and every jinn. According to Miranis, where he says, जो जिंदा है वो मौत की तकलीफ सहेगा, जब अहमद मुरसल न रहे कौन रहेगा? Everybody is going to go through this process of death. If the Prophet of Islam was not exempted from that, who is going to be exempted? And that's why in the Islamic literature you will see that when we talk about death, there is another word used very commonly, and that is the word yaqeen. You understand Urdu, you know Gujarati, and the word yaqeen is common. What does it mean? Yaqeen means something about which you have certainty. In Arabic language, in the Islamic literature, the word al-yaqeen is also used to explain death. Because death is a reality where there is no shak, no doubt at all. On Thursday nights, when you recite this ziyarat for Imam Hussain alayhi salam, one of the sentences you say that, أشهد أنك قد أقمت الصلاة وأتيت الزكاة وأمرت بالمعروف ونهيت عن المنكر. Sixth Imam is telling us to testify what was the achievements of Hussain ibn Ali. Number one, he established prayers. Number two, he's established the principle of, حقوق الناس in form of zakat. Number three, al-amr bil ma'ruf. He bid good to the people, to promote good in the society. And number four, nahi anil munkar, forbidding evil from the society. And then it is summarized. Instead of going through the list after four, the sixth Imam says, just say in short, وَأَطَعْتَ اللَّهَ وَرَسُولُهُ حَتَّى أَتَاكَ الْيَقِينَ. That you, in short, you obeyed Allah and His Messenger until yaqeen came to you. What is yaqeen there? Does it mean that until the Shahadat Hussain was in Nawzubillah in shak? No, here yaqeen means death. حَتَّى أَتَاكَ الْيَقِينَ. You obeyed Allah and the Messenger till the last moment of your life. And so the word yaqeen here is, you can say, وَحَتَّى أَتَاكَ الْمَوْتِ. And this is where we come to realize the importance of this, concept of death, that there is absolutely no doubt about it. Salawat on that. When we talk about, especially this concept of sudden death, Marhum Ali Akbar Ibn Maulana Murtaza Hussain Rizvi, the family is very, very close to my family. Although I didn't know him that much, I left Dar es Salaam when I was 15 years old. I don't remember knowing him, but I knew his late brother. But from what I hear is that, he was a person very friendly with others, with the community, with the relatives and friends, as well as a person who, people like to be in his company. And when that happens in that age, people start questioning what happened. And this is where we have to realize that although death is a reality, but it is a reality which doesn't have any standard. There is no system by which you can go and figure it out, how long I'm going to live. When will I die? And this is very amazing, one of the mysteries of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. When will the death come to a person? Where will it happen? How will it happen? In what state will a person die? This is where normally we say, that when a person has gone through a normal span of life, and when they pass away, basically we say this is a natural death. But if it happens in a way that we don't consider to be the normal span of life, we basically say this is sudden death. In Arabic, we would say mawtul mufajat in the ahadith. In Urdu or Farsi, we would say mawt-e nagahani. It just happened without any warning. This was not expected. It's just like, sometimes when you look at of course, these days the system is different. But when we used to have these lamps which are lit by the oil, you have the oil container at the bottom, and then there is a string coming up, and you lit it. There we say that light is coming because of the oil which is in there. If the light of that lamp goes off, the first thing you will say is maybe it ran out of fuel. It ran out of, tail. And that is what we call natural death. A person has had this lifespan and he died. But if that same lamp, if the wind comes in and blows the light, the flame away, and there's no more light, or somebody blows it off, then you will say, well, the oil is still there, but the light is no more there. That is what we call sudden death. We were not expecting that to happen. But this is where we have to realize that there is no rules and regulations about it. You can have an infant who lives for 2 days and dies. You can have an old person, 104 years, and die after that, or even more. All different ages, people every day, die at different ages, different causes, different ways. And so there is no way that anyone can know about himself or herself that what will be my process. Look at the Quran itself. There is a very interesting example about it. Salawat on Akbar. forgot to mention that, it's interesting that I came here first time to the Allentown community. It was a church in mid-90s. And I'm coming now again. This is a church building. I don't know, next time I'll come to the masjid or not, but we'll see. It's a lot of things. In Quran, there is a very beautiful example of Prophet Sulaiman alayhi salam. Everybody knows Prophet Sulaiman is one of the great, Anbiya of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And he was unique in a way that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala granted him a very vast and powerful kingdom. Not only that, he also had control over the wind and the clouds. He was able to manage and even, organize the rainfall and things like that. And he also had the, ability to talk with the birds. And he had absolute control over the jinn. They were under his command, working for him. So you have all this power that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given to Prophet Sulaiman. With all that power and knowledge that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given to him, even he didn't know when he's going to die. Not only that, he didn't know when he's going to die. His death also can be classified as a sudden death. And when it happens, look at the Quran. It talks about it. He was actually on the roof of his palace, looking down at these jinn and other workers, working for him, sitting on a chair with a asa, with his stick. And apparently by looking at the scenery which is mentioned in the ahadith, apparently he was basically, holding the asa and with his, face on it, resting on it. And at that time, nobody was allowed to come on that roof. He had given instruction, nobody is going to disturb me here. All of a sudden, a very young, handsome young person came. And he said, how did you come here? Nobody is allowed to come here. He said, I am the one. I come without asking permission. I am Malakul Maut. Sulaiman says, okay, give me the time to at least I can lie down. No. In that same state when he was there, Malakul Maut took his soul. If you look at Surah number 34, ayat 14, فَلَمَّا قَضَيْنَا عَلَيْهِ الْمَوْتِ مَا دَلَّهُمْ عَلَى مَوْتِهِ إِلَّا دَابَّةُ الْعَرْضِ تَأْكُلُ من سأته فلما خر تبينت الجن. The ayat of Quran says, when we decreed death for him, no one knew about it. Even when he died, they didn't know. Not even the jinn who worked for him. Nothing disclosed his death to them except an ant. An ant came and started, chewing on the wood of the stick. And that is where the stick broke and he fell down. Because at that time he was resting on it. It's only then they realized that Sulaiman has died. And this is where we have to realize that, a prophet of that level, when we talk about Maut Nagahani, Mautul Mafajat, it's not a sign of, Nauzubillah, that this is a punishment or something like that. This can happen to anyone, the way it even happened to Prophet Sulaiman alayhi salatu wassalam. Salawat. Amir al-Mu'mineen Ali bin Abi Talib alayhi salatu wassalam is a very beautiful, description about the date of Prophet Sulaiman, the way he's teaching us the lesson from it in khutbah number 182 of Nahj al-Balagha, where he says, "Usikum ibadallah bitaqwa Allah alladhi albasakum al-riyash wa asbagha alaykum al-ma'ash." He says, I advise you, or servants of Allah, to fear displeasing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, who gave you good clothing and bestowed upon you abundance of sustenance. فلو أن أحدا يجد إلى البقاء سلما أو لدفع الموت سبيلا لكان ذلك سليمان بن داود. He says, if there was anyone who could secure a ladder to climb up to the everlasting life, or a way to avoid death, it would have been Sulaiman bin Dawood alayhi salam, الذي سخر له ملك الجن والإنس مع النبوة وعظيم الظلفة. It would have, if somebody had any control on this issue, it would have been Sulaiman bin Dawood, who was given the control over the domain of the jinn and men, along with the position of nubuwwat and great, kingdom. فَلَمَّا اسْتَوْفَى سُمْعَتُهُ وَاسْتَكْمَلَ مُدَّتُهُ رَمَتْهُ قَصِيُّ الْفَنَاءِ بِنِبَالِ الْمَوْتِ. Very beautiful way, only Ali can do that. Nobody else can describe. He says, but when his portion of food and sustenance came to the end, sometimes we say, well, it's bande ki rozi khatam ho gayi. Dana pani khatam, zindagi khatam. This is what Amir al-Mu'mineen says, that when his portion of food and sustenance came to an end, and his time came to completion, at that time, the bow of destruction shot him with the arrow of death. This is the way he describes this situation of Prophet Sulaiman. And this is where we have to realize that, when we talk about Nagahani Maut, it's not an issue of making any judgments about it. Rather, when it comes to a mu'min, it comes as a blessing. We have a hadith from the Prophet of Islam, Hazrat Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, where he says, إِنَّ مَوْتُ الْفَجْأَةِ تَخْفِيفٌ عَلَى الْمُؤْمِنِ وَأَخْذُهُ أَسَفٍ عَنِ الْكَافِرِ. That when the sudden death happens to a believer, this is actually a relief for him. Doesn't go through this agony that a prolonged, illness causes to a mu'min. And it also becomes a way of lessening, the liabilities of sins from that mu'min. But when it comes to a kafir, it comes with this sense of, dismay, because now they know what is going to happen to them. Again, from the Prophet, he says, Ya Ali, موت الفجأة راحة للمؤمن وحسرة للكافر. The Prophet says to Amir al-Mu'mineen that, O Ali, sudden death is actually rahat. Rahat is a comfort for a believer, whereas it is a regretful thing for a kafir. And so this is where we have to realize that, when we hear about situations like that, it is actually a moment where we have to reflect about ourselves. and try to reform ourselves so that we can, gain whatever time we have, for the betterment of ourselves in this dunya as well as in the akhirah. Because there is no fixed time. Nobody knows when, where, in what situation. And this is where this idea of getting ready for death is a very important issue. Salawat on Let me share with you one more writing from Amir al-Mu'mineen in one of the letters in Al-Balagha, where he's addressing his son. He says, وَعْلَمْ يَا بُنَيَّ أنك إنما خلقت للآخرة لا للدنيا وللفناء لا للبقاء وللموت لا للحياة. O my son, you should know that you have been created for the next world, not for this world, for dying in this world, not for living forever here. You are أنك في منزل قلعة ودار بلغة وطريقة إلى الآخرة. You are in a place which does not belong to you. You are in a house for preparing for the hereafter. This is a very important point. We don't say that this dunya is useless. No. You cannot build your akhirah but in this dunya. This is where you have to work. Nothing would be there. Whatever will be there is you have to build it here. So consider it to be something valuable in that way, and whatever time we have, let us build it for our akhirah. And then it says, you are in a place which does not belong to you, in a house for preparing for the akhirah, and a passage towards the next world. إنك طريد الموت الذي لا ينجى منه هارب ولا يفوته طالبه ولا بد أنه مدركه. You are being chased by death, from which the runner cannot escape, as it will surely overtake him. فكن منه على حذر أن يدركك وأنت على حال سيئة. This is where, when we talk about death, we don't know where it will happen, in what state. He says, therefore, be on guard against it, lest it overtakes you at a time when you are in a sinful state. لقد كنت تحدث نفسك منها بالتوبة. Maybe after committing the sin, you thought, okay, maybe when I get the time soon, I'll do tawbah. But then the death comes in, he says, as a barrier between you and the tawbah. Sometimes I get this question for some of the youths. When we talk about peer pressure, they say, Maulana, my friends or colleagues are going to a club. Yes, there is dancing, this and that is going on. Alcohol is there, but I will maintain myself. I'll not drink. At that time, my response to that is that, first of all, the environment itself is a problem. Even if you don't drink there, the environment itself is a problem to be there. But just think about it. What will happen if death comes to you there? This is where Amir al-Mu'mineen says, فَكُنْ مِنْهُ عَلَى حَضَرٍ أَنْ يُدْرِكُكَ وَأَنْتَ عَلَى حَالَةِ سَيِّئَةٍ. Beware of it. Be, on guard against it, that it does not overtake you while you are in a sinful state. And this is basically a reminder of the message that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives to us in Surah Al-Imran, ayat number 102. Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu ittaqullaha haqqa tuqatihi. O the believers, fear Allah. Fear the displeasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the way it should be feared. وَلَا تَمُوتُنَّ إِلَّا وَأَنْتُمْ مُسْلِمُونَ. And do not die, but that you are in the state of submission to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And so that's also is very important when we talk about other kinds of, pressures that we have. Just think about it. Think about the moment of death in that situation. And that will be itself a very powerful way of making sure that what we are doing is good for our dunya as well as the akhirah. Salawat. And so, since we don't know about our own death in that sense, we hear quite a lot from ulama where they say, you have to get ready for death. But what does it mean? Does it mean make sure you have a burial scheme with your jama'at? So when you die, everything is done according to the Sharia laws? Well, that is an important thing. Or do you have to make sure your will is up to date and everything? Now, those things are important. But when we talk about the issue of preparing for death, actually we have to see what we can do for our barzakh and our akhirah. I remember once we had a seminar about finance in our center, and a banker came, very good presentation on the slide, talking about the first stage of life, where we are, children, and then we go to school until graduation, and then the second phase is where you get into the workforce, and then the third phase is the retirement. And he emphasized that, during the time when you are in the workforce, that middle age of your lifespan, that is the time you have to prepare for your retirement. When I got the opportunity to talk about it, I said I will extend that line. We don't have to prepare only for the retirement. We also have to prepare for our barzakh and the akhirah. That is the concept that we have to keep in our mind. And so when we talk about preparing for death, it's not only these basic issues that we are talking about. It is basically preparing ourselves for the akhirah. Let me share with you a couple of hadiths before I go towards the Messiah. Salawat alayhi. Dawood al-Raqi, one of the companions of the sixth Imam, he says that I heard the Imam saying, "Man ahabba an yukhaffif Allahu anhu sakarat al-maut." If you want to prepare for death, one of the things would be, what should we do so that we are, kept away from the agony of death, and the death happens in an easy way. Imam mentions two things. Number one, فَلْيَكُنْ لِقَرَابَتِهِ وَصُولًا. Number one, maintain silat al-rahm, your ties with your relatives. Whatever you are supposed to do for them, to help them, to maintain that relationship. If you look at the Quran, you will see that the ayat which talk about silat al-rahm, maintaining the ties with your relatives, this is more than the ayat which are there about prayers. I'm not trying to put the namaz down, but I'm saying just as a comparative level, you will see that the ayat which talk about importance of silatul rahim and condemning qita'ur rahim, which means severing the ties with those who are related to you. And that's where we come to realize that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala takes this issue of maintaining ties with those who are related to you very seriously. And this is how it helps us to get away from this sakaratul maut. Number two, وَبِوَالِدَيْهِ بَارًّا. one should be kind and compassionate towards the parents. فَإِذَا كَانَ كَذَلِكَ, the sixth Imam says, if these two things are there, أَوَّنَ اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِ سَكَرَاتُ الْمَوْتِ, Allah will make the agony of death easy for him. وَلَمْ يُصِبْهُ فِي حَيَاتِهِ فَقْرٌ عَبَدًا, and he will never be inflicted with poverty in his worldly life. Amir al-Mu'minin al-Balagha talks about death quite a lot. He says, be ready for it. And so somebody asked him a question. He says, mal isti'dad lil-maut. That, oh Imam, you talk about, getting ready for death. But what does it mean? What does it mean when you say get ready, for maut? He very beautifully summarized everything in three phrases. He says, number one, ada'ul fara'id. Number two, ijtinabul muharim. And number three, wal ijtimal ala al-makarim. First, he says, fulfill your duties. Number two, refrain from haram. And number three, bring that element of good character and behavior when you interact with people. Salah. If you have these three things, then he says, ثُمَّ لَا يُبَالِي أَوَقَعَ عَلَى الْمَوْتِ أَمْ وَقَعَ الْمَوْتِ عَلَيْهِ. Then it doesn't matter whether the death comes to you or you go towards the death, because you're already ready. And that's where Ali says, one of the instances where he says, وَاللَّهِ لَا يُبَالِي ابْنَ أَبِي طَالِبٍ أَوَقَعَ عَلَى الْمَوْتِ أَوْ وَقَعَ الْمَوْتِ عَلَيْهِ. He says, by Allah, this son of Abu Talib is not afraid whether the death comes to him or he goes towards the death. And these are some of the statements that he makes about it. There's one also incident in his life where he repeats these words, that I don't fear death. This is where after the events of Saqifa, Abu Sufyan was not in Medina at that time. When he came back, when he realized what happened, he goes to the door of Amir al-Mu'minin. And he says, I know it's your right. And I'm willing to support you by bringing, fighters for you. So at least one thing is clear, that Rasulullah had made issues very clear. If Abu Sufyan knew, others definitely knew more than that. So don't tell me that, this issue of Khilafat and Imamat was not, properly explained by Rasulullah. But the Prophet knew, but this is where the Imam knew that this fellow is not sincere. He's trying to basically fish in this muddy water. He has his own motivations. And so Ali says, go away, Abu Sufyan, I don't want your help. Abu Sufyan, he was a very cunning person. He didn't just let it go. He tried to provoke Amir al-Mu'minin there. Now he mentions Ali's father. He says, I didn't know that Abu Talib's son is afraid of dying. And that's where Ali says, Abu Sufyan, go away. Wallahi ibn Abu Talib anisun bil-maut min al-tifl bi-sudyi ummi. That this son of Abu Talib is at ease with death more than a baby is, at ease with the breast of his mother. And so basically Amir al-Mu'minin is saying, do this. Fulfill the fara'id, the duties, stay away from the muharim, haram, and build that makarimul akhlaq in you, good character, you then will not fear dying. When we talk about, this fear of death, because then you will be ready for it. And interestingly, if you see this concept and this akhlaq and these values continued in the generations of the Ahlul Bayt. The other person who uttered the same words like Ali was his own grandson. Remember the events of Karbala when Imam Hussain alayhi salam was moving towards Karbala with his horse in the front. And this is where Ali Akbar was riding slightly behind him on the side. This is for the young people, this when we talk about simple akhlaq. You have to have that protocol. You don't walk ahead of your father or grandfather or elder. In a normal situation, they are already very old and they need your help. Don't say, oh, Maulana Rizvi said I'll be at the back. But otherwise, to maintain that protocol, that he's the elder, so I walk a little bit behind him. So this is how Ali Akbar was riding. And it seems that Imam Hussain alayhi salam at that stage, he had gone into the state of not total sleep, but the horse was just moving on. It was in a kind of a slumber situation. And all of a sudden he woke up and he says, Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. This is where now the son, comes up, equal to the father there, and he says, Ya Abata, oh my father, this statement you uttered is the truth, it's haqq. But what was the occasion? What happened here? He says, I saw a vision that somebody was saying that this caravan is moving towards the death, and the death is moving towards it. Ali Akbar doesn't say to his father, let's go back. He just asked him one thing. Ya Abata alatna ala al-haq. Oh father, are we not on the truth? And Imam Hussain alayhi salam says, indeed, we are on haq. And at that time, there's no generation gap in Islam here. Ali Akbar had not seen his grandfather, but he uttered the same word, same words. He says, oh Baba, if we are on haq, la nubali. Waqa al-mawt alayna or waqa ala al-mawt. It doesn't matter whether we go towards the death or the death comes up on us, because we are on the truth. यही चंद जुमले हम आज की इस मजलिस में कहना चाह रहे थे, ताकि जाके जिन मरहूमीन के लिए ये साल सवाब की मजलिस है, आयात कुरान और रसूल और आले रसूल के अक़वाल और उनकी सीरत से जो कुछ यहाँ जिक्र हुआ है, जिस मोमिन के दिल व दिमाग पर इसका असर होगा तो यकीनन उन मरहूमीन को भी अजर सवाब मिलेगा। एक जुमले पे हम ख़त्म करना चाहेंगे अपनी गुफ्तगू को कि खुसूसन मरहूम अली अकबर के सिलसिले में जो हमने सुना था, अमीर अल-मोमिनीन के एक जुमला है, ख़ालतुन्नास मुख़ालततन, लोगों के साथ इंटरेक्शन इस टाइप का रखो, रहन सहन तुम्हारे ताल्लुकात लोगों के साथ उस टाइप के होना चाहिए कि जब तुम्हारी मौत वाक़ई हो तो लोग तुम पर रोएं, और जब तुम जिंदा रहो तो लोगों को ये इश्तियाक हो कि वो तुमसे आके मिले, मुलाकात। और उसी हदीस की बुनियाद पर हमें कोशिश करनी चाहिए कि अपनी ज़िंदगी को हम बसर करें। मरहूम के अहलिया से और उनकी बच्ची से हम एक जुमला कहना चाहेंगे कि आप लोगों को मौका मिला था कि मरहूम की देखभाल करें, हॉस्पिटल में तीमारदारी की जाए, जो कुछ हो सकता था आप लोगों से भी मुमकिन था। लेकिन मुझे और बच्ची याद करबला में हुसैन तन्हा नहीं थे, उनके खानदान उनके साथ, उनके घर वाले उनके साथ थे। हाँ, अली अकबर की शहादत हो चुकी थी, शिशमाई की भी शहादत हो चुकी थी, लेकिन अभी बहनें मौजूद थी वहां पे। जनाब रबाब जैसी ज़ौजा मौजूद थी, इमाम सज्जाद की तरह बेटा भी अभी मौजूद था, और साथ साथ वो 4 साल की बच्ची भी थी। लेकिन जब हुसैन का आखिरी वक्त आया, इमाम सज्जाद के बारे में आप जरा सोचे तो सही। आप हजरात गए हैं ज़ियारतों के लिए करबला की, खैमेगाह को आप देखें, खैमेगाह और मख्तल इमाम हुसैन। इमाम हुसैन के हरम में एक जगह है जहां रेड लाइट में पूरा रूम जो है रहता है, उसको कहते हैं मख्तल, कत्लगाह है इमाम हुसैन। खैमेगाह से मख्तल हुसैन इतना दूर नहीं था, लेकिन इमाम ज़ैनुल आबिदीन हालात की वजह से इतने मजबूर थे कि बाबा की बालीन तक नहीं पहुंच सके। आखिर वक्त एक बहन थी जो खैमे के बाहर निकलती है कि जब हुसैन की आवाज बुलंद नहीं हुई, इसलिए कि इमाम हर हमले के बाद खैमे के सामने आके ला हौला वला कुव्वता इल्ला बिल्लाहिल अलील अज़ीम का नारा बुलंद करते थे। लेकिन जब बहुत देर हो गई और आवाज नहीं आई, उस वक्त ज़ैनब ने पर्दे को खोला, जाती है देखती है दाहिने हुसैन नहीं, बाएं हुसैन नहीं, हुसैन। ये बहन जो है एक बुलंदी पे जाती है जिसे तिल्ले ज़ैनबिया कहा जाता है। वहां से जब भाई के मंजर को देखती है, बस खुदावंदा किसी बहन को भाई का वो मंजर न देखा है कि जहां देखती है कि हुसैन ज़मीने करबला पर पड़े हुए हैं और शिमर मनऊन का मनऊन जानू हुसैन के मुकद्दस सीने पे है। वो उमर अपने साहब से कहती है तू देखता रहेगा और मेरा भाई कत्ल कर दिया जाएगा। इतने में ज़ैनब देखती है कि नेज़ा बुलंद हुआ, हुसैन का सर नौ के नेज़ा पर नजर हुआ, दौड़ती हुई जाती है, इमाम सज्जाद की शाने को हिलाती है। आँख खोल के देखो। इमाम ने कहा फूफी जान पर्दे को खोले। जब खैमे के पर्दे को खोला गया, इमाम सज्जाद ने बाबा को देखा, कहते हैं अस्सलाम वालेकुम या अल्लाह, अस्सलाम वालेकुम या अब्दुल्लाह। बस एक आखिरी जुमला कहना चाहेंगे कि हम अपने मरहूमी के लिए आखिर में जो कुछ हो सकता है करते हैं। अगर कोई बीमार होता है, पानी मांगता है तो उसे पानी देते हैं, लेकिन करबला में जब हुसैन का घोड़ा खैमों के बाहर आता है और बीवियों ने जो आवाज सुनी है दौड़ के बाहर निकलती है, सकीना के सिम को देखे वो घोड़े से जाके बात करती है, एक सवाल खुद करती है, कहती है ये बताओ मेरे बाबा को आखिर में पानी नसीब हुआ। الله على القوم الظالمين سيعلم الذين ظلموا أي منقلب ينقلبون खुदावंद इस कबल बात कबूल फरमा, हमारे गुनाहों को बख्श दे, हमारे तौफीक़ात में इजाफा फरमा। खुदावंद इस ज़िक्र कुरान और ज़िक्र मोहम्मद आल मोहम्मद के अजर सवाब जो मरहूमीन के लिए ये मजलिस रखी गई हैं उनके बख्श दे। खुदावंद उनकी नेकियों को कबूल फरमा, उनके लफ्ज़ों को माफ़ फरमा, उनकी नेकियों के कबूलियत के साथ साथ उनके दर्जात को बुलंद फरमा, उनको मोहम्मद आल मोहम्मद के जवार में जगह इनायत फरमा, आखिरत में मोहम्मद आल मोहम्मद के शियों में महशूर फरमाना। खुदावंद आलम इस्लाम में सुलह और अमन की फ़िज़ा पैदा कर, तकफ़ीरी अफ़वाज की तमाम सलाहियतों को नीस्त नाबूद फरमा, आन के ज़ुहूर में ताजिल फरमा। रब्बना तक़ब्बल मिन्ना इन्नका अंतस समीउल अलीम। एक बार और सूरह फातिहा और 3 बार सूरह इखलास की तलावत फरमा के मरहूमीन को बख्श दे। फातिहा।
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. السلام عليك يا رسول الله، السلام عليك يا أمير المؤمنين، السلام عليك يا فاطمة الزهراء سيدتي نساء العالمين، السلام عليك يا حسن المجتبى، السلام عليك يا حسين شهيد كربلاء، السلام عليك يا جميع شهداء كربلاء ورحمة الله وبركاته. السلام عليك يا علي بن الحسين ومحمد بن علي وجعفر بن محمد وموسى بن جعفر وعلي بن موسى ومحمد بن علي وعلي بن محمد والحسن بن علي. السلام عليك يا مولانا يا صاحب العصر والزمان، الأمان الأمان الأمان. السلام عليك يا خليفة الرحمن، السلام عليك يا شريف القرآن، السلام عليك يا كعبة الإيمان، السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.